Number 1. 1966 Ford Fairlane 500 convertible, offered at $28,000 and currently located in Huntsville, Tennessee. In my opinion, this 1966 Fairlane 500 convertible is a straightforward classic cruiser that focuses more on timeless style and driving enjoyment than high-end performance or heavy modifications. The Fairlane has always been a bit of an underrated Ford compared to Mustangs or Galaxies, but that actually gives it a certain appeal for enthusiasts who prefer something a little less common. What immediately stands out to me is the classic red-on-red color combination. In my view, that kind of bold factory-style presentation fits the 1960s era perfectly. It's the type of setup that looks best with the top down on a sunny day, especially at local cruise nights or weekend gatherings where classic American convertibles tend to shine. Under the hood is a 289 cubic inch V8 paired with an automatic transmission. While this isn't a high-performance big block setup, I think the 289 is more than enough for a car like this. It offers smooth, reliable power and a comfortable driving experience, which is really what many buyers want from a mid-1960s convertible cruiser. The seller doesn't go into a lot of detail about upgrades or restoration work, which in my opinion suggests this Fairlane is being presented in a more honest, driver-focused condition rather than as a heavily rebuilt showpiece. That can be a good thing for buyers who want something simple and usable without worrying about overly complex modifications. One thing I do notice is the mileage listed as 123,456, which is obviously a placeholder style number in many listings. Because of that, I would treat it more as an unknown factor rather than a precise reading. In cases like this, condition and maintenance history become more important than the odometer itself. Overall, my opinion is that this 1966 Ford Fairlane 500 convertible is a clean, classic V8 drop top that seems aimed at someone who just wants to get in, put the top down, and enjoy the driving experience. It may not be a high-end restoration or a rare performance build, but it carries the simple charm of a 1960s Ford convertible done in a very traditional way. Number 2. 1964 Ford Galaxy 500 XL, offered at $22,500 and currently located in Douglasville, Georgia. From my point of view, this Galaxy sits in that sweet spot where classic American style meets modern drivability upgrades. It still keeps the long, bold presence of a mid-1960s Ford full-size coupe, but underneath it has been updated enough to make it far more usable than a completely stock Survivor. The first thing that stands out to me is the stance and chassis setup. With four-wheel coilovers and a Ride-Tech 4-link rear suspension, this is clearly not just a stock cruiser anymore. In my opinion, those upgrades suggest the car has been built to handle better, corner more confidently, and feel more controlled at highway speeds. Combined with four-wheel disc brakes, it's a major step up in safety and drivability compared to the original factory setup. I also like the wheel setup, 18 inches in the front and 20 inches in the rear. Personally, I think that gives the Galaxy a more aggressive, modern muscle car look while still respecting its classic proportions. It's the kind of visual upgrade that immediately signals this is a Restomod-style build rather than a factory restoration. Under the hood is the original numbers matching 390 FE big block paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. In my opinion, this is one of the best parts of the car because it keeps the original Ford character intact while still benefiting from supporting upgrades like ignition improvements, new fuel system components, and a refreshed charging system. The seller even mentions it successfully completed a 400-mile trip, which tells me it's not just a showpiece, it's actually road-ready. I also appreciate the honesty in the listing. The seller openly mentions that the car isn't perfect and has quirks, which, in my experience, is always a good sign. No classic car of this age is completely flawless, and transparency usually indicates realistic expectations rather than hype. Another strong point is the rust-free body claim. Personally, I always consider rust condition one of the most important factors in classic Ford full-size cars, because repairs can become extensive very quickly. A solid body gives this car a strong foundation for long-term enjoyment. One downside is that the air conditioning currently does not work. However, I think it's important to note that the seller is including a completely new AC system with the car. In my opinion, that turns a weakness into a future upgrade opportunity rather than a deal breaker. At $22,500, I think this Galaxy is positioned as a driver-quality restomod rather than a factory-correct collector car. It's not aimed at purists, but more at someone who wants classic styling with modern performance and comfort improvements. Overall, my opinion is that this 1964 Ford Galaxy 500 XL offers a strong blend of vintage American design and thoughtful upgrades. With its coilover suspension, disc brakes, big block 390, and long-distance driving capability, it looks like a classic that has been built to be enjoyed on the road rather than stored in a garage. Number 3. 1971 Ford Maverick Grabber, offered at $38,500 and currently located in Morganton, North Carolina. In my opinion, this 1971 Maverick Grabber is one of those cars that stands out immediately because it combines factory performance identity with a surprisingly strong restoration story. The Maverick is often overlooked in the muscle car conversation, but the Grabber package gives it a much more aggressive personality and makes it far more desirable among Ford enthusiasts than a standard economy-oriented Maverick. The biggest highlight here is the factory 302 V8 paired with an automatic transmission. In my view, this is the ideal configuration for a small, lightweight Ford like the Maverick. The 302 is known for being a reliable and responsive small block engine, and in a car this size, it delivers a lively driving experience without feeling overcomplicated or fragile. It's the kind of setup that makes the car fun both in city driving and on open roads. Another major upgrade that immediately stands out is the four-wheel disc brake conversion. From my perspective, this is a significant improvement over the original braking system and suggests the car was built with drivability and safety in mind. Many restored classics still rely on older drum brake setups, so seeing a proper disc brake upgrade adds confidence for real-world use. The fact that this is a factory Grabber blue car also adds important value in my opinion. Color originality plays a big role in collector interest, and Grabber blue is one of the most iconic Ford performance colors of the era. Combined with the Grabber package, tinted glass, bucket seats, and dual exhaust, this Maverick clearly carries the visual identity of a factory performance model rather than a basic commuter car. The seller also notes that the restoration is over 10 years old but still presents as show-ready. Personally, I see this as a positive sign when the car has been maintained properly. A decade-old restoration that still looks sharp often indicates quality workmanship rather than a rushed cosmetic job. The mention of beautiful chrome, trim, and glass suggests the car has been well cared for since completion. Inside, the custom seats and restored interior add a personalized touch. While purists sometimes prefer factory original interiors, I think tasteful custom upholstery can enhance comfort and visual appeal, especially in a restomod-style build like this one. The inclusion of air conditioning also makes a big difference in usability, turning what could be a weekend-only classic into something more enjoyable in everyday conditions. The addition of power steering further supports the idea that this car was built for drivability. Combined with the upgraded brakes and automatic transmission, it seems designed to be easy to handle rather than demanding or tiring to drive. One thing I find particularly interesting is the claim that everything works as it should. In the classic car world, that phrase is often more meaningful than it sounds. Fully functioning systems on a restored vehicle, especially electronics, AC, and driveline components, suggest that the car has been maintained beyond just cosmetic appearance. From a value perspective, the $38,500 asking price places this Maverick Grabber in a fairly strong bracket for its segment. While Mavericks traditionally sit below the pricing of Mustangs or higher-tier muscle cars, the Grabber package, factory V8, quality restoration, and upgrades help justify a higher market position. Overall, my opinion is that this 1971 Ford Maverick Grabber is a well-presented and thoughtfully upgraded classic that blends factory performance identity with practical improvements. The combination of a 302 V8 Grabber package, disc brake conversion, air conditioning, and strong cosmetic condition creates a car that seems focused on enjoyment, usability, and visual impact. For someone who appreciates underrated Ford performance models, this Maverick appears to be a standout example that delivers both style and driving appeal. Number 4, 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu, offered at $40,500 and currently located in Browns Summit, North Carolina. From my perspective, this is one of those classic Chevelles that immediately stands out because it blends barn-find character with tasteful modern drivability upgrades. The 1967 Chevelle is already a highly respected body style in the muscle car world, and even in Malibu trim, it carries that unmistakable mid-60s Chevrolet presence that enthusiasts are always drawn to. The first thing that catches my attention is the claim of original sheet metal and a straight body described as straight as an arrow. In my opinion, that alone is a major foundation point for value. When a classic car retains its original metal without major cutting or patchwork, it often means the vehicle has avoided the worst kinds of structural damage or heavy restoration shortcuts. What makes this example particularly interesting is the combination of its barn-find background with fairly modern mechanical upgrades. Under the hood sits a GM high-output 350 crate engine paired with headers and a Holley carburetor. Personally, I see this as a very sensible upgrade path because it keeps the classic Chevrolet small block character while improving reliability and performance compared to an aging original engine. The addition of a 200R4 overdrive transmission is another highlight in my opinion. This is one of those upgrades that completely changes how enjoyable a classic car can be to drive on longer trips. With overdrive, the engine can cruise at highway speeds more comfortably, reducing RPMs and making the car far more usable in modern driving conditions. The rear setup with a 10-bolt differential and 3.55 gear ratio suggests a balance between acceleration and drivability. It's not an extreme drag setup, but instead something that feels well matched for a street cruiser that still has enough punch when you step on the throttle. One detail I really appreciate is the mention that the car still has its original interior in perfect shape. In my opinion, that's one of the hardest things to preserve in a classic car. Interiors are often the first area to deteriorate over time, so seeing a well-preserved cabin adds a lot of authenticity and value to the overall package. The seller also mentions that the car has not been cut on, which is an important phrase in the classic car world. It suggests that the body has not been heavily modified or altered, preserving the original structure and design. Combined with the note that the car drives and rides like new, it paints the picture of a well-preserved driver rather than a heavily altered project build. The blue exterior and blue interior combination gives the car a very period-correct look. While it may not be the flashiest color scheme, it fits the Chevelle's classic personality and enhances its vintage appeal. The paint is described as driver quality, which in my opinion is actually appropriate for a car like this. It suggests usability rather than show-only perfection. The inclusion of original items like the rally spare and factory jack also adds a nice touch of completeness. These details might seem small, but for many collectors, they contribute to the sense that the car has been cared for rather than stripped or pieced together over time. At $40,500, I see this Chevelle Malibu as sitting in the driver quality classic with strong bones category. It's not a fully restored show car, but it also isn't a worn-out project. Instead, it appears to be a well-preserved, mechanically improved classic that is already proven on the road, including a recent 4-hour drive without issues. Overall, my opinion is that this 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu represents a very appealing blend of originality and usability. It keeps its classic identity while incorporating thoughtful upgrades that make it far more enjoyable in today's driving environment. For someone who values a solid body, a reliable drivetrain, and a true vintage driving experience without starting from scratch, this Chevelle looks like a strong and honest option. Number 5. 1969 Chevrolet Camaro Coupe 2D, offered at $69,500 and currently located in Landrum, South Carolina. In my opinion, this is a strong example of a properly restored first-generation Camaro, and it sits in a very different category compared to the earlier modified LS swapped build. This one appears to be aimed more at the traditional classic car market, where originality of appearance and high-quality restoration work carry significant weight. The first major detail is that this is a real Code 59 frost green Camaro with a green interior. That matters because factory-correct color combinations are becoming increasingly desirable among collectors. Many restored Camaros are repainted in more common or aggressive colors, so a correctly represented factory color adds a level of authenticity that helps distinguish it from the rest. According to the seller, this is a frame-off restored vehicle. In my opinion, that is one of the most important factors in determining value in a classic Camaro. A frame-off build typically means the body was separated from the chassis and rebuilt from the ground up, addressing structural components, suspension, drivetrain, and cosmetic finish. When done properly, it can essentially bring a car back to near new condition underneath while allowing for a fully refreshed exterior and interior. Mechanically, it retains a 350 cubic inch engine paired with a 350 automatic transmission. While not the most powerful combination available in the Camaro lineup, it is a very reliable and widely supported drivetrain. The addition of power steering and power disc brakes also makes it far more enjoyable to drive compared to fully manual setups, especially in modern traffic conditions. The seller emphasizes that the car runs and drives well, which is important because not all restored cars are fully sorted mechanically. A show-quality paint job and clean bodywork are impressive, but drivability is what ultimately determines how enjoyable the car is to own. Visually, a green-on-green 1969 Camaro is somewhat uncommon compared to more typical red, black, or blue builds. In my opinion, that uniqueness can be a double-edged sword. Some buyers will appreciate the originality and period-correct appearance, while others may prefer more traditional muscle car colors. However, for collectors who value factory authenticity, this combination could be a major selling point. At $69,500, this Camaro is clearly positioned in the higher-end segment of the market. That price reflects not just the car itself, but also the cost of a full restoration, quality paintwork, drivetrain setup, and overall presentation. In today's market, professional frame-off restorations of first-generation Camaros can easily reach or exceed this range depending on execution quality. If I were evaluating this car, I would focus heavily on the quality of the restoration details, panel alignment, underside finish, wiring cleanliness, and how well the car actually drives under load. Frame-off restorations can vary significantly in quality, and the difference between a good build and a great one is often found in the small details. Overall, my impression is that this 1969 Chevrolet Camaro represents a well-restored, factory-correct muscle car that prioritizes authenticity and presentation over modern modifications. The combination of a frame-off restoration, original color code, solid drivetrain, and strong visual condition makes it a serious contender for buyers looking for a classic Camaro that is both show-ready and enjoyable to drive. Number 6. 1968 Ford Fairlane 500 convertible, offered at $8,000 and currently located in Clarksville, Tennessee. In my opinion, this 1968 Fairlane 500 convertible is the kind of listing that immediately stands out because of its simplicity and price point. Even without a long description, the Fairlane name alone carries a certain level of classic Ford appeal, especially in convertible form where the driving experience becomes the main focus. What catches my attention first is the fact that it's a mid-size Ford convertible from the late 1960s, a period when American manufacturers were still heavily invested in stylish, open-top cruisers. In my view, cars like this were never about extreme performance. They were about relaxed driving, long summer weekends, and enjoying the road with the top down. The listing is very minimal, which means there's a lot that would need to be verified in person. However, in my opinion, the biggest takeaway here is the asking price. At $8,000, this Fairlane sits in a range where many classic car buyers start looking for project cars or entry-level cruisers. That alone makes it interesting for someone willing to take on a bit of work or restoration. Since there are no details provided about the engine, condition of the top, interior, or mechanical work, I would personally treat this as a needs inspection type of vehicle. With older convertibles especially, the condition of the frame, floors, and convertible mechanism can make a huge difference in overall value. Overall, my opinion is that this 1968 Ford Fairlane 500 convertible is a budget-friendly classic that could be either a hidden opportunity or a light project depending on its actual condition. It has the potential to be a fun summer cruiser, but it definitely requires closer inspection before making any judgment on its true value. Number 7. 1962 Ford Falcon, offered at $6,000 and currently located in Boiling Springs, South Carolina. From my point of view, this Falcon is less about collector value and more about personal connection and everyday usability. It's the kind of classic that doesn't necessarily sit in a climate-controlled garage, but instead continues to serve as a simple, enjoyable driver that brings back memories every time it started. The first thing that stands out to me is the honesty in the description. The seller is clear that this is not a show car, and in my opinion, that immediately sets realistic expectations. At this price point, that kind of transparency is actually more valuable than polished marketing language. What I find most interesting is that the car is being used as a daily driver. Personally, I think that says a lot about its condition. Even with 170,000 miles and an engine swap, a car from the early 1960s that is still being driven regularly suggests it has been kept mechanically alive and functional rather than sitting unused for years. The inline-six engine also fits the character of the Falcon very well. In my opinion, these smaller Ford engines were never about performance. They were about simplicity, durability, and ease of maintenance. That makes the car especially appealing for someone who wants a straightforward classic without the complexity of a big block setup. I also like the interior color combination mentioned, off-white exterior with a turquoise interior. Personally, I think that kind of vintage color pairing really captures the early 1960s American design language. It feels light, nostalgic, and very period correct. One thing that stands out is the unknown mileage due to the engine swap and odometer rollover. In my opinion, that's not unusual for a car of this age, especially one that has been actively used and modified over time. At this point, condition and drivability matter more than exact numbers. Another detail I notice is the family-oriented story behind the sale. The car is being sold because the owner is getting older and doesn't need multiple vehicles anymore. Personally, I think that adds a bit of emotional context that you don't always see in listings. It suggests the car has been part of someone's life rather than just an asset. At $6,000, I think this Falcon sits firmly in the affordable classic category. It's not a restored collector piece, but it also doesn't appear to be a neglected project. Instead, it's a functional, running classic that can still be enjoyed without a major investment. Overall, my opinion is that this 1962 Ford Falcon represents a simple, honest, and usable classic car. With its inline-six engine, daily driver status, and approachable price, it feels like the kind of old-school Ford that prioritizes enjoyment and practicality over perfection or prestige. Number 8. 1966 Ford Mustang, offered at $20,000 and currently located in Marion, Ohio. In my opinion, this 1966 Mustang represents a fairly straightforward but potentially solid classic car package, especially for someone looking for a clean, rust-free example that has already gone through a major restoration. While the listing is brief and not highly detailed, the key points suggest this is more of a rebuilt driver-quality Mustang rather than a highly original collector piece. The most important detail here is the ground-up restoration about 4 years ago. In my view, that immediately places this car in a different category compared to unrestored or partially restored examples. A full restoration typically means the major structural and cosmetic issues, such as floors, trunk, quarters, and wiring, have already been addressed. The seller specifically mentions all of these areas, which suggests the car was not just repainted, but actually rebuilt in key sections. The claim of no rust is another strong point if it can be verified. From my perspective, rust is one of the biggest long-term concerns with mid-1960s Mustangs, especially in floor pans, frame rails, and rear quarters. A rust-free body combined with a recent restoration can make ownership significantly easier and less expensive over time. The drivetrain setup is fairly simple but proven. A 289 cubic inch V8 paired with an automatic transmission. In my opinion, this combination is very typical for a 1966 Mustang and is valued more for reliability and ease of driving than outright performance. The 289 is a well-regarded engine in Ford's small block family, known for being durable and relatively easy to maintain, which makes it a good match for a driver-focused classic. The mention of motor and transmission new or rebuilt is encouraging, although it is somewhat vague. Personally, I would want more documentation on what exactly was rebuilt and who performed the work. In classic car purchases, the difference between rebuilt and professionally rebuilt with receipts can be significant in terms of confidence and long-term reliability. One thing I notice about this listing is its very minimal presentation. The seller references photos and requests serious buyers only, which often indicates either a private sale mentality or limited effort in marketing. While that doesn't necessarily reflect the quality of the car, it does mean a potential buyer would need to rely heavily on inspection rather than description. From a driving perspective, a restored 289 automatic Mustang typically offers a relaxed and enjoyable experience. It won't deliver the aggressive performance of later stroker builds or modified muscle cars, but it should provide smooth cruising, classic V8 sound, and the iconic Mustang driving feel that many enthusiasts are looking for. The interior is described as new or rebuilt, which aligns with the overall restoration theme. In my opinion, a refreshed interior can greatly improve the ownership experience, especially in a car that is intended for weekend driving or occasional use. It often makes the car feel more complete and more enjoyable even if the mechanicals are relatively simple. At the $20,000 asking price, this Mustang appears to sit in the mid-range of the classic Mustang market. It is not priced as a high-end show car, but it is also not positioned as a project vehicle. Instead, it seems to fall into the restored driver category, where condition and honesty matter more than rarity or originality. Overall, my opinion is that this 1966 Ford Mustang is likely a solid, usable classic that benefits from a full restoration and rust-free body. The 289 V8, automatic transmission, and rebuilt major components suggest a car that can be enjoyed without immediate major work. However, due to the limited detail in the listing, it would be important for any serious buyer to verify the quality of the restoration and mechanical rebuilds in person. If those checks out, it appears to be a straightforward and enjoyable entry into classic Mustang ownership. Number 9. 1971 Ford Ranchero Squire 429 4V, offered at $9,500 and currently located in Ramsey, New Jersey. From my perspective, this is one of the more interesting project meets driver style classics you can find in today's market. The Ford Ranchero already sits in a unique category by itself, blending the comfort and styling of a car with the utility of a pickup. The Squire trim adds a bit more character and luxury to that formula, making it feel less like a work vehicle and more like a personal cruiser with cargo capability. The first thing that immediately stands out is the engine swap. This Ranchero originally came with a 351, but it now runs a 429 4-barrel V8. In my opinion, that completely changes the personality of the vehicle. The 429 is a big block engine known for its strong torque output, and in a lighter, shorter wheelbase platform like a Ranchero, it likely delivers a very aggressive and entertaining driving experience. However, what I find equally important is the honesty of the listing regarding its current status. The seller clearly states that it runs and drives but is not registered for road use at the moment and should not be expected to be test-driven on public roads. Personally, I appreciate that level of transparency because it sets realistic expectations for any potential buyer. One of the strongest points of this listing is the amount of included original parts. The seller mentions the original 351 engine, interior components, and extra glass still being available. In my opinion, that significantly increases the value of the package because it gives the next owner flexibility. They could choose to return the car closer to original specification or continue developing it as a modified big block cruiser. The mention of a Marti report also adds credibility to the car's history. While I won't speculate on its full contents, having documented factory information is always a plus in the classic Ford world because it helps confirm how the car was originally configured and optioned. Mechanically, the Ranchero does have some important upgrades already in place, including power steering and front disc brakes. These are very practical improvements, especially when dealing with a big block engine. In my opinion, those upgrades are almost essential for a vehicle like this, as they help manage both drivability and safety. The seller also notes that the underside is extremely clean with only light surface rust. Personally, I always consider underbody condition one of the most important factors in classic vehicle evaluation. Surface rust is common and generally manageable, but structural rust can quickly turn a bargain into a long-term restoration project. Inside the cabin, the interior has been swapped, and the seller leaves it open for the next owner to decide how they want to configure it. To me, that signals that this vehicle is more of a flexible platform rather than a finished, turnkey restoration. Some buyers may see that as a drawback, while others may see it as an opportunity to customize the car to their own vision. At $9,500, I think this Ranchero sits in a very interesting position. On one hand, you are getting a classic Ford body, a big block 429 engine, and a running drivetrain setup. On the other hand, it is clearly not a fully sorted or fully documented road-ready restoration. In my opinion, this pricing reflects that balance between potential and current limitations. Overall, my opinion is that this 1971 Ford Ranchero Squire represents a strong foundation for someone who wants a unique classic project with serious performance potential. It combines vintage Ford styling, big block power, included original components, and a clean underbody, but still requires some finishing work and proper registration to become a fully usable street vehicle. For the right buyer, especially someone comfortable working through mechanical and cosmetic details, this Ranchero could easily become a very distinctive and enjoyable classic cruiser with both utility and attitude. Number 10, 1964.5 Ford Mustang, offered at $60,000 and currently located in Lake Placid, Florida. In my opinion, this is one of those listings where the car itself sounds very interesting, but the lack of detail in the description makes it difficult to fully evaluate without direct inspection. The 1964.5 Mustang is already a historically significant model, being part of the very first production run of Ford's most iconic pony car. That alone gives it strong collector appeal, especially when it has been heavily customized and almost completely rebuilt, as the seller claims. The phrase, essentially a nearly brand new car, is doing a lot of work in this listing. In the classic car world, that can mean anything from a full frame-off restoration with modern components to a Restomod-style build where major systems have been upgraded or replaced. Without specific details, it's impossible to know exactly where this car sits on that spectrum, which is why the seller restricting information to serious inquiries only is both intriguing and a little cautious from a buyer's perspective. What we do know is that it features a black exterior and black interior combination. In my opinion, that's one of the most timeless and aggressive-looking configurations for a Mustang. Black on black enhances the car's silhouette and gives it a unified, muscular appearance, especially on a first-generation body style that already has strong visual identity. Mechanically and structurally, the listing suggests a significant level of investment has been made. A nearly completely rebuilt Mustang could potentially include upgraded suspension, modernized drivetrain components, refreshed wiring, interior restoration, and possibly performance enhancements. However, because none of that is explicitly stated, it's important to treat those assumptions carefully. At $60,000, this Mustang is clearly positioned in the high-end classic or Restomod market. That price range typically includes professionally built cars with documented restoration work, upgraded performance systems, and high-quality paint and interior finishes. In other words, buyers at this level usually expect transparency and detailed specifications. One thing I find particularly important is that early Mustangs, especially 1964.5 models, already carry historical significance due to their status as the first production year. That often adds a premium even before restoration work is considered. When combined with a full rebuild, the value can rise significantly, but only if the quality of that rebuild is proven. If I were evaluating this car, my first priority would be documentation. I would want to see build sheets, photos of the restoration process, receipts, and a full breakdown of what was replaced or upgraded. The phrase, details provided to serious inquiries only, usually signals that information exists, but it also means the listing is intentionally vague at the public level. Driving experience would also be a key factor. A heavily rebuilt classic Mustang can range from a mostly original driving feel to a fully modernized Restomod that drives like a contemporary vehicle. Those are very different ownership experiences, and both can justify a high price depending on execution. Overall, my impression is that this 1964.5 Ford Mustang is likely a high-quality restomod or extensively restored early pony car with strong visual appeal and significant investment behind it. However, the lack of specific information makes it impossible to fully validate the asking price without further inquiry. It has the potential to be an exceptional build, but it is also the kind of listing where due diligence is absolutely essential before making any serious decision. Number 11, 1965 Chevrolet Impala SS, offered at $45,000 and currently located in Clarks Mills, Pennsylvania. In my opinion, this 1965 Impala SS is a strong example of why full-size American muscle cars from the mid-1960s continue to hold so much appeal. The Impala SS was never just about performance, it was also about presence, style, and the feeling of driving something substantial and unmistakably American. What immediately stands out to me is the combination of the 327 cubic inch V8 rated at 300 horsepower paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. In my view, this is one of the most desirable drivetrains for a car like this because it blends smooth small block power with a more engaging driving experience. It gives the car a level of involvement that automatic versions simply can't match. The seller mentions that the car is mostly stock, which in my opinion is a big plus for collectors who appreciate originality. Aside from coilovers, front disc brakes, and wheels, the car reportedly remains close to factory specification. That balance between light upgrades and original character often makes a classic more usable without taking away its authenticity. The red exterior with a white interior is a classic 1960s Chevrolet color combination that really emphasizes the long, flowing design of the Impala. In my opinion, this is the kind of styling that still turns heads today because it represents the peak of full-size American automotive design from that era. Another detail I find interesting is the inclusion of original accessories like hubcaps, fender skirts, and other factory components. These kinds of parts often matter to collectors because they allow the car to be returned to an even more original appearance if desired. The seller also describes the car as running smoothly and purring like a kitten, which suggests that mechanically it is in good condition. While that is subjective wording, it generally implies a well-tuned and enjoyable driving experience. Overall, my opinion is that this 1965 Chevrolet Impala SS is a well-preserved, lightly modified classic that combines strong small block performance with iconic styling and manual transmission engagement. It sits in a segment of the market where originality and drivability both matter, and this example seems to offer a good balance of both. Number 12, 1974 Dodge Challenger Coupe 2D, listed at $1 and currently located in Cherryville, North Carolina. From my point of view, this listing immediately stands out, not because of the price itself, but because it clearly represents a project car with significant recent investment and a strong performance foundation underneath it. Anytime you see a classic E-body Challenger paired with a 440 big block, it already places the car in a serious performance category. The first thing I notice is the drivetrain combination. The 440 cubic inch V8 paired with the TorqueFlite 727 automatic transmission is one of Chrysler's most well-known and respected setups. In my opinion, this combination is famous for one reason: reliability under power. The 440 delivers strong torque, and the 727 is widely regarded as nearly bulletproof when properly built. I also find it important that the seller emphasizes recent professional work completed in late 2024, including both mechanical and cosmetic restoration efforts. Personally, I see that as a major positive because it suggests the car has already gone through a significant portion of the expensive and time-consuming rebuilding process. Another detail I appreciate is the honesty in the description. The seller clearly states that it is not a flawless show car, but rather a turnkey driver that is ready to enjoy. In my opinion, that distinction is important because it helps set realistic expectations. This is a usable classic, not a museum piece. The fact that the car has been stored in a climate-controlled garage also stands out to me. Personally, I always consider storage conditions one of the most important factors in classic car preservation. Controlled environments usually mean less rust risk, better preserved interiors, and fewer hidden structural issues. One interesting aspect of this listing is the extremely low asking price of $1. In my opinion, this is likely symbolic or used as a placeholder rather than an actual valuation of the vehicle. Given the drivetrain, restoration work, and overall platform, the real value is clearly much higher and depends entirely on the condition and documentation. The mention of full receipts and manuals is another strong point. Personally, I think documentation adds credibility and transparency, especially in builds involving major engine and drivetrain work. It allows potential buyers to understand exactly what has been done and how the car was assembled. There is also a trade consideration mentioned for a camper, which suggests the seller is flexible rather than strictly cash-focused. In my view, that often indicates a more personal sale rather than a dealer-style transaction. Overall, my opinion is that this 1974 Dodge Challenger represents a serious big blocky body project with strong mechanical bones and significant recent investment. With its 440 engine, 727 transmission, documented restoration work, and garage-kept condition, it appears to be a performance-oriented classic that is already close to being fully usable, depending on the final tuning and finishing details. Number 13, 1964 Ford Galaxy, offered at $30,000 and currently located in Boonville, North Carolina. In my opinion, this 1964 Galaxy presents itself as a strong driver-focused classic that benefits from both solid mechanical updates and long-term structural integrity. It sits in that appealing category where the car has clearly been brought back into active use after a long period of storage, rather than being over-restored into something less original in character. The most important element here is the 390 cubic inch V8 paired with a 3-speed manual transmission and rear overdrive unit. In my view, this combination is one of the more interesting aspects of the listing. The 390 FE engine is known for strong torque and smooth highway performance, and when combined with overdrive, it suggests the car is capable of more relaxed cruising while still maintaining that classic big block Ford character. The seller also mentions that the overdrive unit was recently serviced, which is a meaningful detail for drivability and long-distance use. Another positive point is the list of mechanical work completed after the car came out of storage in 2002. From my perspective, this kind of recommissioning work is critical for older classics that have been sitting for extended periods. Items such as a new fuel tank, rebuilt carburetor, new fuel pump, updated brake hydraulics, and a new battery indicate that the essential systems have been addressed to make the car roadworthy again. When done properly, this type of work can transform a dormant classic into a usable driver without compromising its originality. The fact that all lights and turn signals are functioning is another encouraging detail. While it may seem basic, electrical reliability is often one of the more frustrating issues in older vehicles. So having those systems working properly adds confidence in the overall condition of the car. Structurally, the seller emphasizes that the floors, trunk, rockers, and quarters are original and in very nice condition underneath. In my opinion, this is one of the most important aspects of any classic vehicle evaluation. Original metal, especially in a full-size 1960s Ford, suggests that the car has avoided major rust repair or panel replacement, which often affects long-term value and authenticity. The description also notes that the car has been washed and waxed and is presented as a fastback-style Galaxy. Whether that refers to specific trim or body configuration, the overall impression is that the seller views this as a particularly desirable example rather than a standard base model. From a performance perspective, the phrase, "it's fast," likely reflects the strong torque characteristics of the 390 engine rather than modern high-speed capability. In my opinion, that kind of power delivery is exactly what makes these big Ford sedans enjoyable. They provide a sense of effortless acceleration rather than high-revving performance. One interesting aspect of this listing is the seller's confidence in stating it needs nothing and calling it a keeper. While that is subjective, it does suggest that the vehicle has been brought to a point where it is intended for enjoyment rather than ongoing restoration work. The pricing structure is also notable. Offering to contribute toward shipping or discounting for pickup indicates a willingness to negotiate within a defined range, which may reflect confidence in the vehicle's condition while still acknowledging market competition. Overall, My opinion is that this 1964 Ford Galaxie appears to be a well-sorted, mechanically refreshed classic that retains its original structural integrity and strong V8 character. The 390 engine, manual transmission with overdrive, recommissioning work after long storage, and solid body condition combine to create a vehicle that seems well-suited for cruising and occasional driving. While it may not be a high-end restored showpiece, it has the qualities of a dependable and enjoyable classic that preserves the traditional feel of 1960s Ford performance and comfort. Number 14, 1965 Pontiac GTO Coupe 2D, offered at $67,500 and currently located in North Canton, Ohio. From my perspective, this is exactly the kind of classic Pontiac that sits near the heart of the American muscle car legend. The 1965 GTO is already widely regarded as one of the defining cars of the muscle car era, and this example appears to take that foundation and enhance it with a combination of period-correct identity and performance upgrades. The first thing that immediately stands out is the presence of PHS documentation. In my opinion, this is extremely important in the Pontiac world because it helps verify the car's original build specifications. Documentation like this often adds confidence for buyers, especially when dealing with higher-value classics where authenticity matters. What makes this particular GTO interesting is the upgraded 421HO engine with the YK suffix code. From my perspective, this is a significant performance step up from the original configuration. The 421HO was known for strong torque and serious street presence, and in a lightweight A-body like the GTO, it creates a very aggressive driving character. The Ram Air system is another detail that enhances both performance and visual appeal. Personally, I think Ram Air setups add a certain level of mechanical drama to classic muscle cars. They not only help with airflow at speed but also reinforce the image of a performance-focused machine built for more than just cruising. One of the more unique aspects of this listing is the upgraded 4-speed automatic transmission. While many enthusiasts prefer a manual in a GTO, I actually see the automatic as a practical choice for someone who wants to enjoy the power of a big V8 without constantly shifting in traffic. In my opinion, it broadens the usability of the car while still maintaining strong performance characteristics. The exterior color combination of starlight black with a red interior is, in my view, one of the most iconic and desirable setups for a mid-1960s muscle car. Black paint highlights the GTO's aggressive lines, while the red interior adds contrast and a very classic performance car atmosphere. Inside, the bucket seats with center console, rally gauges, and wooden steering wheel all contribute to a very period-authentic driving environment. Personally, I think these details matter because they help preserve the emotional connection to the era, not just the mechanical performance. The inclusion of power steering and power brakes is another practical advantage. These features make the car significantly easier to handle, especially given the added torque from the 421HO engine. In my opinion, they are essential upgrades for a car that is intended to be driven and enjoyed rather than just stored. The 3.55 rear differential is also worth noting. From a driving perspective, this gear ratio provides a good balance between acceleration and highway usability. It suggests that the car was set up with real-world drivability in mind rather than being optimized purely for drag racing. Red line radial tires complete the classic muscle car look while offering improved grip and usability compared to older bias ply setups. Personally, I see this as a small but important upgrade that enhances both safety and performance. At $67,500, this GTO is clearly positioned in the higher tier of the classic muscle car market. However, when I consider the combination of documented provenance, upgraded high-performance engine, strong visual presentation, and overall condition, the pricing starts to align more closely with what serious collectors often expect for a well-built GTO. Overall, my opinion is that this 1965 Pontiac GTO represents a high-quality blend of authenticity and performance enhancement. It maintains its classic muscle car identity while incorporating meaningful upgrades that improve both power and drivability. For someone who appreciates the legacy of the GTO nameplate and wants a car that delivers both collector appeal and real-world performance, this example appears to be a strong and well-rounded option in today's market. Number 15, 1966 Dodge Monaco, offered at $1,500 and currently located in Mt. Arab, Ohio. In my opinion, this is a very rough but potentially interesting project car, mainly because it still has a running 383 V8 and a solid frame at a very low asking price. However, this is also the kind of listing where the cheap entry price comes with a long list of serious complications that cannot be ignored. The first major concern is the title situation. The seller clearly states "no title," which immediately places this car into a higher risk category for many buyers. Even though a bill of sale is offered, registering a vehicle without a title can be complicated depending on local laws. In my opinion, this is one of the biggest factors that will determine whether this car is a realistic purchase or not. Mechanically, the car does have some positives. It is equipped with a 383 cubic inch two-barrel V8 paired with an automatic transmission. That's a respectable drivetrain for a mid-1960s Dodge full-size car. The fact that it starts, runs, and moves suggests that the engine and transmission are at least functional, which is a strong point in its favor considering the price. However, the car is not road-ready in its current condition. The seller notes that the brake system is not functional due to a broken brake line. In my opinion, that alone means the vehicle cannot safely be driven until significant repair work is completed. Brake system restoration on a vintage car can also reveal additional issues, especially when components have been sitting for long periods. On the positive side, there are indications that the vehicle retains some structural integrity. The frame is described as solid, and the interior is considered decent. These are both important factors, because rust and interior deterioration are often what turn inexpensive classics into total restoration nightmares. The mention of electrical components working, such as lights and turn signals, is another small but meaningful positive sign. It suggests that at least parts of the wiring system are still functional, even if the overall vehicle clearly needs attention. One unusual detail is the ongoing work with plexiglass for the front and rear windows due to vandalism. In my opinion, this adds uncertainty about the car's overall condition and history of exposure. Vehicles that have been vandalized or left partially open to the elements often develop hidden issues over time, especially with moisture intrusion. Stylistically, the Dodge Monaco is part of a generation of large American full-size cars that emphasized comfort and presence. Even in rough condition, these cars still carry visual weight due to their size and chrome-heavy design language. The chrome reference in the listing likely refers to trim condition or styling emphasis, which can still be appealing to enthusiasts looking for a restoration base. At $1,500, this is clearly a budget project or parts car rather than a ready-to-drive classic. In my opinion, the value here depends entirely on how much work a buyer is willing to take on and whether they can successfully resolve the title issue. Overall, my impression is that this 1966 Dodge Monaco is a running but non-roadworthy project with both potential and significant risk. The 383 engine and solid frame are the main highlights, but the missing title, brake issues, and uncertain condition mean it is best suited for an experienced enthusiast who understands the challenges of reviving a neglected classic rather than a beginner looking for an easy restoration.